Hello, my friends. Dani Beit-Or from SimplyDoIt here, and today I want to walk you through one of a deal that one of our clients back in October 2020 did not end up doing. And I do want to just mention that I'm going to show you what this person actually missed on so we can learn from that. And I also going to show you what happened with the property. And I will tell you, just as a spoiler, one of our other clients ended up buying this property. So let's walk you through and show you what this property looked like back then, but who is this buyer, and why did he miss, or why do I think he missed buying this opportunity that we were looking at. So let's start with our buyer. Out of his privacy, I'm going to call him Eric. And Eric used to live and still lives in the San Francisco Silicon Valley. He works for a very large tech company. Back in 2020, he was 40 years old, married with 2 kids. As much as I know, he's still married and still has 2 kids, but he's no longer 40, but I think he's more like 44. His wife back then was 37, also works for a very big tech company. My assumption is both of them are high earner, so that means this is a household that has a double income by 2 Silicon Valley veteran engineers. They're probably making really good income. Okay. At the time, he was a renter, and I think he purchased his own home in 2022. I am not 100% sure, but I think so. And when we started working together towards the end of 2020, he came very close to making an offer, right, on a house, on an investment property with us. Now, I do want to mention that he's a super nice guy. We had very many good conversations, but before he signed up to be a SimplyDoIt client back in 2020, after multiple conversations we had before he signed up, I told him, hang on one second, Eric. Before you sign and become a client and make this commitment, I want you to think very carefully if this is the right thing for you, because based on all the conversation we had so far, my assumption is, based on my many years of experience, that you are not going to buy a rental property primarily because you are either very afraid to do so, or you are so analytical, which I see very many times happening with Silicon Valley type of engineers, and so Excel oriented that you will be what we all know as analysis paralysis. And I'm sorry to say that he did not end up buying not this one and not any other property, and we looked at many. But let's look at Eric. Now that we got to know Eric, our friend from Silicon Valley, and let's see what we were considering for Eric back in 2020. And those are this is the actual property and the actual numbers as they were presented to Eric back in 2020. So this is the house itself, Metro Kansas City, Missouri. And those are the numbers back in October 2020. I'm not going to go over every number. I just want to point out a couple of things. Back in 2020, this is October 2020, the asking price was $185 with an estimated market value of about $205. Back then, we were doing 25% down. Interest rate was 3.75. Pretty nice. And to buy this house, Eric needed about $57,500, which is mainly the down payment and some additional closing costs and a little bit of improvement. The estimated rent for this house back then was about $1,600 a month in rent. Now, back in 2020, when we did our 5-year projections, which we always do, right? We do 5, 10, 15, and 20 years projection. Let's just focus on the 5 years. We projected that this house, the monthly cash flow would be almost $400, and the estimated price or value of this property would be in 5 years, that means in 2025, in 5 years, $250,000. $250,000. Okay. Fast forward, we are in April 2025. It's been 4.5 years. Let's see what happened with this property. All right. On the value side, remember we projected it will be $250,000. Looking at Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, just to give us a ballpark. I know it's not perfect and it's not accurate 100%, but let's just see a ballpark. The average between those two, three websites is 280,000. So that means, based on this information, the value of this property is $30,000 more, or 12% higher than what we projected back in 2020. That means this house went up in value almost $100,000 in 4.5 years, or 95 to be exact, which is 51% in increase. Or if we want to average it, is $21,000 per year, or an increase or an appreciation of 11% per year. So that means this house could have generated to Eric all those beautiful numbers. Actually, I'm very happy that one of our other investors ended up buying this property. Back then in 2020, we projected, or we told Eric that he would need $57,500 to purchase this house, of course, with a mortgage. So if you think about the amount he needed to invest, this return is reflecting 165% return on his original investment, right? By the way, I can't believe that in 4.5 years, our down payments almost double. So last time we were able to buy a house with those numbers for such a low down payment or investment amount, it's been multiple years, right? So nowadays is almost double that. Let's look at the rental performance. Back in 2020, we were estimating that the rent would be $1,600. It actually rented after closing by another investors of ours for $1,595. I think you can all agree $1,600 it is. Back in 2020, we projected that in 5 years, right? 5 years later, in 2025, the rent would be $1,765. The actual market rent of this property right now is $1,950. So $185 more than what we projected back then. So what I'm trying to show you is that if Eric would not have been as afraid, and we are always trying to make our clients very comfortable and confident and walk them through, but if Eric would have been a little bit more courageous, just a little bit more, and stick to the numbers that you can see, our numbers, I don't want to call them conservative, but they were cautious. Our numbers were not beautified. They were not amplified in any ways. You can see on the value, we estimated much less than it actually did. On the rent, we estimated $1,600 and it got $1,600. We estimated it will be $1,765 5 years later. It's actually more than that, right? So everything that we projected is 5 years later is also presentable, as you can see. And I gotta tell you, as a small personal confession, this is not something that I picked out of the pile as the one who outperformed the other ones. Actually, I had another one that I was starting to work on. It did so well during the same period of time that I thought it would be just too good to be true. That other house that we were also looking at 185 is now $330,000, $335 actually $1,000. Well, that may be too good to be true, or maybe an outlier. I don't know. Let's just stick to something that it's really representing. And this property here, the one Eric did not end up buying, is a typical or very similar to what I see across the board with the deals that we were doing back then. So my question to you, I want to leave you with a question. Are you and Eric, are you also sitting on the sideline and just debating or thinking or looking at what can happen instead of figuring out how to make it happen for you? Thank you very much for watching. I hope you benefited from this video. And as always, please do not forget to hit subscribe.